Hello, and welcome back to Practically Fearless with Chris Girata. Today I am honored to welcome someone helping to shape the future of education in Texas. As a former U.S. Secretary of Education and former president of the University of North Carolina system, she understands what it takes to fight for a better future. She's the president and CEO of Texas 2036. Margaret Spellings, thank you for taking time to be with me today.
Chris, thanks for the opportunity. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. So what we do here is we kind of investigate what people are doing personally to help their community, and you are absolutely someone who knows how to help their community. And so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit of what's keeping you busy these days and what is passionate for you these days, and just about how that's kind of motivated you.
Well, what's keeping me busy these days is the Texas legislature. I mean, Texas 2036, our remit is to, put sensible people together to think long term. 2036 is our bicentennial as a state, about big things like education and health, using lots of data. And that is our calling card.
Okay, so something I love about what you've done is you've taken kind of the long look, 2036 bicentennial, and you did not start this year. You've been working on it for a long time, and you're trying to set Texas up to succeed, to take advantage of what it is that is happening kind of naturally, the economic gains that we are making, so that you don't leave anyone out or leave anyone behind.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that you have said, I've heard you say it a few times, is in God we trust, everyone else bring data.
That's it.
I love it.
Thank you for paying attention.
Oh my gosh, I love it, because that's one of my favorite quotes. And so what could you tell us in a little snapshot about Texas's opportunity and why we need to actually work to be able to seize that opportunity?
Well, we're about 30 million people in Texas right now. As everybody knows, we're a magnet for talent and people across from all over the world, from all over the country. We're going to grow another 10 million or so into our bicentennial by 2040 or so. So, our number one asset is our people. We Texans think of ourselves as rich in natural resources, and we are. Energy, agriculture, ports, financial centers, all of that is fantastic, but none of it runs without, highly capable, committed people. And I like to say that, educated people are healthy people are educated people, educated, healthy people, create prosperity in their communities, are, active churchgoers, and, and on and on. So it's just a virtuous cycle when we get developing our people right.
What I have found fascinating about talks I've heard you give is that you have so much policy background, of course, but it ultimately kind of gets down to there are amazing economic opportunities for people in Texas, but Texas is not preparing its own children to seize those opportunities. So we bring in a ton of talent outside of the state, and I find that extremely compelling. We have so many children. We actually have a pretty young state.
We do, and it's a real asset.
And that asset, though, we're kind of not focusing on. We're kind of squandering that. And so I'd love to know, it makes total sense. We've got to raise our own kids up to take these excellent jobs in the future right here in our own state. I'd like to know why that matters to you. Economically, of course.
Right.
But there's got to be something else underneath that is really pushing you to make that a priority.
Well, for starters, we just are wasting too much amazing human potential when our kids and our young people are, underemployed, underfulfilled. And, we've really seen a lot of that in COVID, a lot of despair, mental health, and it doesn't have to be that way. We can triage, have a sense of urgency, whether you're a policymaker in Austin or somebody who's volunteering in a school or teaching a kid to read. We need to all put ourselves on the field of play and make sure that Texas is a prosperous place for all of us. And it's that one at a time, one kid at a time. Tom Luce, the founder of Texas 2036, likes to say that we need, bottom up meeting top down, and we can all be part of that.
The people who watch this are likely not going to be at the same tables with the same opportunities as you, but I bet they've got very micro opportunities to make differences in individuals' lives. Is there a moment where you remember actually making an impact in a single life that just filled you up and probably compelled you to do the more macro work that you're doing now?
I remember when I was at the Department of Education as the secretary, we had a volunteer, tutoring program that the staff at the Department of Education was very much engaged in with the groups in Washington, D.C., elementary school kids that came after school. And I remember tutoring a little girl one day, and she was, probably in the fourth or fifth grade. I mean, she couldn't read a lick.
Hmm.
And she had been, kind of moved through the system. She was very, restless. Her dad was in jail. Her mother was, working three jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And she was just a struggling kid and adorable, precious, bright.
Sure.
And, so when you just see that lost potential, you think, I've got to help do something about it. And as I say, it can be in a lot of different ways, getting the policy environment right, getting the resources right, supporting our educators, teaching a kid to read, volunteering, on and on. But, just finding that human connection, I think really is important.
So when you think about your prime motivator, it's obviously making sure people get all of the support they need to kind of be the best that they can be. My guess is that's not only just a moral imperative. You're a person of faith. And where do you kind of root that identity, and how do you combine that with the almost secular work that you're trying to do as well, holding those two things in tension?
Yeah, I mean, I think our faith teaches us that we're all equal. I mean, that every individual has value, and there's you don't deserve to have a better pedigree than I do as a human being. We all are full of potential and full of opportunities that God gives us. So, I mean, I just think we need to help everyone meet that potential through all these various things that are wonky, but also through just having a heart for others and having expectations and a sense of urgency. President Bush used to talk about the so-called soft bigotry of low expectations, and I like to think about, well, what do I want for my kids, and why should my expectations for somebody else's kids be different than those that I want for my own?
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Right.
That's pretty rich.
It's pretty rich. And translation, it means, somebody else's kid doesn't deserve the opportunity, the standards, the resources, the, fill in the blank that my own children have. If my aspirations are for my kids to go and complete college, why would I think that people in Southern Dallas want less for their kids? They don't. They want the same thing.
It's interesting when we talk about, at our faith teaches us love God, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
So when we look at loving our neighbors, I think too often we translate that, or people kind of sitting in the pews, so to speak, translate that as do no harm. I wonder, though, how much the do no harm has actually created that low expectation.
Yeah.
And so, in
I
a
think
sense,
that's right. Yeah.
I hope that people will start to pivot away from, like, I did not hurt that person, or I am not harming that person, or my personal actions are not hurting this entire group of people, versus I am actually using my own giftedness to help raise someone else up, or to help provide another opportunity. And I wonder if you might kind of speak to that idea of it's not just good enough not to hurt somebody.
Right.
Actually, if you've got the capacity, you have to go make sure that you're defending the people being hurt, or giving opportunities to those who seem to be kind of floating out there in the ether.
Right.
And in addition, right here in North Texas, is there something you've seen that you would point to and say any person could go there and make an impact? Any person could go and help within that one umbrella and really do something good, not only for themselves, but obviously for the people to which they are helping?
Well, that is a shameless way for me to plug the work that you all do at St. Michael's and All Angels. I mean, there are millions of ways for people to plug in through, every community group in the world, and some of which address basic needs like, food security and
Sure.
transportation and, basic health needs and on, all the way to, volunteering in schools, helping, becoming a very proficient volunteer, teaching kids to read, using financial gifts to help give back. And I mean, it's unending opportunities and need. But I think I really like the way you framed that about not just the do no harm, because our expectations for others have to be as high as they are for ourselves.
Sure.
And as Christ would have us do. So, yeah, I mean, make sure somebody has a warm meal, but what's their additional potential? And that to me is why I'm so keen on education, because that is how we cure all of society's ills. We really do. I mean, when people are educated and feel like they have a future, and they create that virtuous circle for themselves and their families.
That fundamental hopefulness.
Yeah, exactly.
That the future has possibility.
And you're entitled to that. You're empowered. You're engaged in your future, because that's what that's why you're sitting here. Somebody gave you an opportunity to be educated so that you could give the kind of service that you're doing.
Well, and invested in the future. I think that that's part of what we're losing in a lot of our political rhetoric right now, is this fear that there is no future, or the fear that the future is worse than the past.
Exactly.
And so when you have that fear, you almost kind of lose your mind. I mean, you lose civility.
It affects the way you think about
Absolutely.
yourself, about your neighbor, about your community. Yeah, and it's really corrosive. And so, amen. We got to get a handle on that. And that's why, we at Texas 2036 are orienting toward what's possible for our future. And, we're Texans. We, are braggadocios that if we, we're the 9th largest economy in the world, we're, growing, young, if anybody can do it, we can.
Okay, so hit for me a few things about Texas 2036 that you would want people to know. And I would love for it to be kind of within the realm of that hopefulness for the future. So if you could point to a couple or 3 data points that you would say, if we got this right, X would happen. Or if we could move in this particular direction, we could achieve Y. So that as people are watching this, they could see, oh, that is a very tangible way to understand the brightness of our future right here in our state.
Well, for starters, our organization is bipartisan, it's statewide, it's future focused, and uniquely is connected across all parts of the policy spectrum. So, listen, I've been involved in education stuff for a long time, but if you're just in that silo, you're missing housing and health and transportation and all those things. So the hip bone and the leg bone really are connected in public policy. And so we take that broader view. We're also very data focused. So for example, we're one of the few states that has not expanded Medicaid. So we have developed some tools to show the legislature, look, for very little state money, we can dramatically enhance the number of insured adults and children. We lead the nation in the number of adults and children, percentage terms and raw numbers in the nation. Is that where we want to be? So, trying to elevate, get people, out of their corners and onto the facts, and around some shared priorities like, hey, we should be healthy. Hey, we should feel safe. Yeah. We should be able to have clean air and clean water.
Something you said kind of triggered something for me. I often say in my role as a priest, pastor, that one of the things I do often is try to pause in conflict and remind people of who they were made to be, and perhaps ask them who they wish to be. Because people find themselves walking down these paths and they hit walls, or they find that they feel lost, and they begin to act out because they kind of forget who they are. And to give people an opportunity to be reminded of who they want to be almost always invites people to better behavior or to more hopefulness.
And to humility, I think,
Oh my gosh. Well, that's super important, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and that's not just for high class people, it's for all kind of people.
And so if there was something that just the average viewer, listener could actually do, say in the next month or two, to try and move the needle in a positive way, what would you want them to try?
Okay, well, I'm like a super nerd about this, but I would want people to understand, how are kids in their communities or in their schools, not just, the aggregated community, but, in the school that your child attends, not just the private school, but how is that local school campus doing? Are they teaching all the kids to read? Are they teaching the kids to, compute? And, and I'm not talking just about advantaged kids. I'm talking, look at that data. Where are the problems? Where are the places that invite, active solutions and problem solving? And get real about what's the school around the corner. And, go talk to the principal about what they're doing about it and how you can help and how, et cetera. So you can break down these problems and issues that we read about in the paper into kind of a micro bite and, go to it yourself. But the first thing is go find out what the state of affairs is. So that's my secretarial assignment to your listeners.
Okay, so how about, as we kind of reach the end of the conversation, what about something that you've done recently that you thought that was a small thing? It was not Secretary Spellings going to do that thing. It was just Margaret that kind of went and did a nice thing. I'd love to hear that little story.
Well, I'm not necessarily in education because I've been, incapacitated. This is a silly thing. I was on a ferry a few months ago, and a gentleman didn't have the right ticket for the right day, and he was a doctor and needed to get to his hospital, do surgery, and they said, "Sorry, sir, you got to go back to the front of the line." Blah blah blah. He was clear he was going to miss the ferry and miss his way to the thing, so I gave him a ticket. And you would think I gave him $1 million, but it kind of made his day. I mean, that's just a dumb thing that comes to mind, but I felt a lot better about it than he did, probably.
I bet.
Just those little things. And, I, more than you want to know, I've injured myself and have, had a walker and a cane and just limited mobility. And it's really, really helped me feel compassion for people who, live with limited mobility. And going through the airport, I was that person that was like, "Get out of the way, slow poke," shove it in the overhead bin, all that kind of thing. And so now, obviously, I'm slowing it down and having compassion for others as well. So it's
that's
a good lesson.
Humility piece.
It's absolutely
right.
It's a good
we're
lesson.
reminded that, gosh, none of us have it all together all the time.
No.
And I love your story about the ticket, because it does seem like the problems of the world are so significant.
Yeah.
Who are we? Like, who am I, little me, to make a dent in everything going on? But it's like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what that
But the guy showed up
did.
to operate on you. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have literally saved a life because you simply gave away the ticket.
Yeah.
And that's a remarkable thing to do. And we all have those opportunities all the time.
But you have to pay attention to that person in need. You have to, look up from your phone.
That's it. You noticed he needed the ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't ask you.
No.
You just knew he needed one because you were paying attention.
Yeah.
Man, Margaret, that makes me think of all the times I sit in a restaurant with my family and I'll look over at a table next to us and every person is staring down at their phone.
Yeah.
Not paying attention. They have all gone to the same place
Yeah.
to sit around the same table.
For a family dinner.
Not a one of them is looking at each other.
Yeah.
It is really quite sad. So
It
maybe
really is.
look up.
Look up. And
Pay
see.
attention.
Yeah, pay attention.
We
to
have
your neighbor.
opportunities.
That's a good start.
Every single one of us has the power to do
Exactly.
something. And perhaps we might even say the power to do something fearlessly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Chris,
gosh,
I knew you were
that's
going to
great.
get that in there some way.
Some way, Margaret, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk
It's
with
a
us
treat.
today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you have a lot going on. Thank you all for listening today. And remember, you have the power to be fearless.